Now, the tadpoles I've just shown you, these are the parents in here, and these are the bumblebee poison dart frog. The Latin name is Dendrobates leucomelis, and leucomelis means yellow. Anything that's got leuco in it. Quite a lot of plant names will have leucosperm or leucomelis, means yellow. And oh, where's she gone? There she goes. That's one. Now you're quite good with these ones because you actually quite a few in the tank. I can only see one at the moment, but I'm not sure where they are. They're quite a good species, quite a good community species. Okay, so this is one of my salamanders. It's actually a tiger salamander, and these ones come from North America, right up into Canada. So basically it's a little bit like our newt that we have in this country, but a lot larger. And their favourite food is crickets. I don't know if we can put a cricket in there, we've not actually go for that, hang on. Put a cricket there, I don't know if we will actually go for that or not. Now what's really interesting about these is that they're actually able to, in the winter, they're actually almost able to freeze solid. They've got like an antifreeze in them, which, oh, there we go. What they'll do is they'll curl up and then the ice will actually form around them, and they almost end up like big snowballs. And then come the spring, that dissolves or melts, and then the salamander will carry on its life. Now they actually need to freeze to actually be able to produce offspring, have babies. If they don't freeze down and get those really cold temperatures, they're not very productive, and they don't have many babies. So you know, you've probably heard about global warming and the temperatures rising. You know, amphibians like these could have major problems because they don't get frozen in the winter, they won't have many babies, and of course what happens, the population crashes. But a pretty cool salamander. Different salamanders here. These are fire salamanders, and these are found all over Europe, from southern France into Spain, Italy, Turkey, all the way over. Now they have these bright colours on them because they're actually a warning sign that they're actually toxic, they're poisonous. So although to us it's not actually poisonous at all, but if you were like a small predator like a rat or a mouse or a bird, you bite the salamander and you'd end up with that poison actually in your mouth. It's very bitter tasting apparently, so it's not something you particularly want to ingest into your bodies. Keeping these, they need to be kept cold. Obviously they come from fairly cold countries, or they live on the ground in cold countries, so they need to be kept in those kind of conditions. So we've got plants and wood in here so they can all hide, and it's always important to have a water bowl as well. So pretty cool. They're some of my favourites, these. They really are cool. Interesting fact about these, most amphibians lay eggs. These actually give birth to live babies. So we've had babies in the past. Okay, so this is a really big frog. This one's called Jabba, and Jabba is an African bullfrog. And it's actually the second largest species of frog in the world. There's only one larger than this one, and that's called the Goliath frog. Now, Jabba is quite capable of taking, or he will eat, small mice, small birds, small rats, and large insects. Now you can see if I touch him here, you can see that Jabba's really blubbery. Now he's not full of fat. What he's actually full of is water. Now the reason that he's full of water is that he comes from Africa, and in certain parts of Africa it can get very dry. And frogs need to remain wet or damp at all times. So we've got a problem. We've got an animal that needs to remain wet, living in a very dry place. So what Jabba's going to do, he's going to find himself a puddle when it rains and fill himself up with water. Now he's not like you and me, he doesn't drink through his mouth. He's going to find that puddle, he sits in it, and he can suck water through his bottom. And then he can store that water in his body for up to a year. And he'll actually just bury himself in the ground. He'll produce like a waterproof coating, and that will stop him from drying out. And that's what he does. Now they really are very inactive. In fact, the only time they really become active is when it's breeding season, and what will have to happen is that you'll have to have water, so it'll have to rain, and there'll be big puddles around, and then they start getting very vocal, making lots of croaking noise and looking for females. Now, what's really interesting about bullfrogs, or these giant African bullfrogs, is they're one of the only species of amphibian to actually look after their babies, which is quite unusual. Normally a frog lays a big pile of eggs, the eggs hatch and all the tadpoles disperse all over the place, and then in fact if the females are around or the males are around, they will actually eat their own offspring, whereas these ones actually look after their babies, which is quite unusual. And they've been filmed in the wild. If the puddle's drying out, they'll actually use their back legs to make a channel so they can bring more water into the puddle so that the tadpoles survive. So that's Jabba, the giant African bullfrog. Okay, so what we've got here is a rather large toad, and this is a cane toad, and they come from Australia. Now, they were actually introduced to Australia to kill or try to eat a bug. There was a big black bug that was getting into the sugar cane, and it was climbing up the sugar cane, climbing down to the growing point and killing it. And the scientists thought, we need to get rid of this pest because it's destroying all our crops. So they introduced the cane toad to eat them. But unfortunately, what the scientists didn't work out is that the toad lives on the ground, and the cane beetle can actually live up to about right up in the top of the sugar cane, which can actually grow to about 10 meters tall. So of course there's no way the toad can get up to it. So what's happened is that these have multiplied in their millions all over Australia, and they'll basically eat anything that fits in their mouth, so they've become a real major problem. And this one's about the size of my hand, so it's quite a big toad. So, you know, anything that moves, it will eat. So they'll be able to eat mice and little possums, all different types of things, which actually can be swallowed whole. Now, the main difference between a frog and a toad is that frogs need to live either in a damp or wet place for most of their lives. You'll always find a frog in a wet place, whereas toads, they live on the land and they have dry skin, whereas frogs have wet skin. And really the only time a toad goes in the water is when it needs to lay its eggs, which would be in the spring. The rest of the time is spent on land. And that makes sense, because if they all lived in the water or they all lived in the land, they'd all want to eat the same food, and you wouldn't need so many of them. This one's called Terry, by the way. Terry the toad. He's got a friend in there somewhere, but the friend's hiding at the moment. Pretty cool beastie. Okay, this is one of our more unusual tree frogs. This is called an Amazon milk frog, and it's a type of tree frog that lives in the Amazon basin or in the Amazon rainforest. Quite an attractive frog. What's really interesting about these ones is that they show typical frog behaviour when they're breeding, but they'll actually lay their eggs in holes in trees, and obviously that hole needs to have water in the bottom so that the frog can actually go in and lay that, and that's the only place they'll actually lay them. So they won't lay them out in a pond or a lake or river or stream. So to replicate that in captivity, we actually have to make like almost like a nest box with a little pond of water inside it, and then they'll actually go and spawn in there and lay their eggs. A pretty cool frog though. Again, there's two of them in here. I'm not sure where the other one is at the moment. They're hiding in here somewhere. But, got a real close up there for you. Oh. You can see underneath his mouth there, he's got the throat sac there, where they actually use that to croak. They fill it up with air and push the air back out. Pretty cool frog. Okay, so just before we go, I thought I'd just show you one of my wildlife ponds. This is one of the bigger ones we've got. So in here we end up with newts and frogs, occasional toads. We've got two species of newts. We've got the smooth and the palmate newt, which are native ones. It's not a very good day to actually see them, but there's loads of little baby ones in here, and they hide in all the weed down the bottom there. It's really good to have a natural pond. And the reason they do so well is we don't actually put any fish in there. There's no fish in there because of course the fish will eat the baby tadpoles and everything. Sometimes we have a really good year with lots of them. Other times depends on how many dragonflies have laid their larvae into there, because the dragonfly babies actually will eat the frogs and toads. So I'll pan back a little bit so you can see actually our wildlife pond is pretty cool. So that's it again, guys, for another week of looking at some of the amazing animals that we keep here, that we take out to do shows and displays and all this kind of thing. I hope you've enjoyed seeing them, and I look forward to sending you some more videos next week. Take care, everybody. Bye bye. Now, the tadpoles I've just shown you, these are the parents in here, and these are the bumblebee poison dart frog. The Latin name is Dendrobates leucomelis, and leucomelis means yellow. Anything that's got leuco in it. Quite a lot of plant names that have leucosperm or leucomelis means yellow. And oh, where's she gone? There she goes. That's one. Now, you're quite good with these ones because you actually quite a few in the tank. I can only see one at the moment, but I'm not sure where they are. They're quite a good species, quite a good community species.